Okay, so I am so excited because now we are in the seventh week of my AM talk show, and I have now decided to bring on guests to get a perspective of what their background is, what their insight is on disrupting poverty through leadership and solutions. And I have a wonderful guest today. This morning, I happened to meet her on a campaign trail, so to speak. So, as president of the Randallstown NAACP, we've been doing civic engagement and leadership and, voter registration and all of that. And I happened to meet this individual and know this topic this morning is not about politics. It is about getting to know her perspective on certain topics. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to ask her for no more than 2 minutes to go ahead and introduce who you are, your background, a little bit about you, and what are some things that some people may not know about you that you would want to share. And welcome.
So my name is Donna Broadway-Callaman, from the Callaman, and I am from Randallstown, Maryland. I live in Owings Mills. What about me? I feel like I do a little bit of everything. I Part of the reason why I'm here is because I am getting involved in community engagement. So not just politics, because part of the things that I always say is that you don't need an office to be involved. It's simple as going out into your neighborhood and being like, oh, why don't we have this? Why don't we have that? Why do my kids have to have this? And then like going around the state, because part of what I do for a living is I do public affairs. So I do that all around the state of Maryland. So pretty much every single neighborhood in the state I've been in. And you look at some neighborhoods and places that are comparable to ours, and I'm just kind of like, they have some things and amenities, and how come we don't have that? But in terms, aside from that, I'm mother. I have two little girls. I have lived in this neighborhood my entire life. I would be. I don't want to say I would be alive. I said I wanted it to be great for them because I do want it to be great for them. But I live here too, and I want this to be a great neighborhood for everybody. So that's part of why I'm so like heavily involved, and it's not just with the politics, but also the school board. I'm getting involved with the schools and making sure that the schools are good. Just asking questions as a citizen and not necessarily as someone who wants to run for office. Because I'm quick to look at something and I'm like, how come this is not there? Like I was riding down 695 the other day and I saw 70 and I'm like, how come there's not a sign that says to Columbia, to going to 70? It's just random things like that. Just looking at things and be like, how come they don't exist? And then bringing that to the forefront. So, like I said, that's a little bit about me. I feel like, what do you do? A little bit of everything. I'm a busybody. I'm going to put that in my bio. Professional busybody and nosy person.
I think you would have to put busybody. If that's the case, then we will all be walking around with that title, that tag, that notion, that category. You're just an informed and engaged person,
Yes,
right?
I'm a busybody nosy. I mean, but it's good. You need busybody nosy people to bring things to the forefront.
Yeah, that's true. More intentionally and strategic, but yeah, absolutely. So I'm excited to have you on the show this morning. And so
Thank you.
let's dive in. Is that all right with you?
Yes, it's all right
Okay.
with me.
Huh?
I said, yes, please.
Yes. Okay. So, knowing or hearing, what my show platform is, what do you know about Agenda 2030?
I don't. Are you going to edit that out?
No, it's Donna, if you just don't answer the question and if you don't know, it's okay.
I do not know. I'm
Okay,
so
listen,
sorry. Okay,
it's
Donna.
not a trick question.
Okay.
It's fine. It's fine. So, Agenda 2030
Mhm.
is an international campaign,
Okay.
and the goal is to end poverty by
Mhm.
2030, right?
Okay.
So it's
Oh, I thought you said Agenda 23. Okay, I've heard of
Oh no,
Agenda
yeah,
2030.
Agenda
Okay, I thought you said
2030.
Agenda. Okay, yeah, okay,
Mhm.
I've heard of Agenda
Okay,
2030.
go ahead. So what do you know? So outside of what I just identified, what is your familiarity with Agenda 2030?
Like I said, like you just said, to do programs and implement different things to end poverty by 2030, which is 4 years from now. So that's pretty much just it. So
Yes. So what does leadership that delivers result mean
Mhm.
to you? And how has that philosophy shaped your work? So let me
Oh,
repeat again
okay.
before you answer. So what does leadership that delivers results
Mhm.
mean to you? And how has that philosophy shaped your work?
I think the main thing is like if you're going to take on a job, whether or not it's paid or volunteer, like you should do a good job at that job because you're just collecting infinity stones. And I mean, most of it is voluntary. So when you take on a community, service project, when you tell people, hey, I'm here and I want to help and I want to serve and I want to do these things for the community, then you should probably actually do those things for the community. You should be communicative, you should be present, you should be available, you should actually do your job. And I feel like that's one thing I found out, not just working in community service aspects, but also professionally, because the sheer amount of people that just simply don't do their jobs. Like you are chasing down people to do their jobs. And it's like you took on a job. This is your job. And we go career wise. This is your job. This is your career. Yes, we have to work because, uh, even Oprah has to work, but I you have to work. You picked this vocation for whatever reason, and you should probably do as good a job as possible. So I definitely think it's accountability. I think is doing the job that you said you were going to do, and that's the main part. Because like I said, so many people just want the title, want the position, and I think it's great when you can list things that you've done in a way you can impact the community. But like I don't want to say people can't see it. Like, if a tree is falling in the forest and we can't hear it, what does that mean? Like, you can list a bunch of things, but do we feel it? Do we know? Is it there? Like, is the community better? People around you better? Like, so that's also not just doing my job, but trying to be easy to work with, trying to be amenable, because we're all here for a purpose, and that's to do the job that we volunteered to do.
If I had a mic, I would drop
Oh,
it, but
okay.
I don't want
Thank
to do
you.
that. But okay.
Thank you.
All right. So, thank you so very much for that. So, Agenda 2030 focuses on creating a more equitable,
Mhm.
sustainable, and prosperous future. Which sustainable development goal resonates most with you and why? Are you familiar with the SDGs of Agenda 2030?
Can you refresh my memory?
Yeah, so like SDG 1 is no poverty,
Okay.
SDG 17 is partnerships for the goals. SDG 8 is equitable and fairness. SDG 10 is health related.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So any around those?
I would definitely say health related because as the population gets older and we deal with more illness and things, being sick is expensive. And like I've had two people recently, even though they were older, who passed away. And a lot of people think that a lot of the things that are offered, like with the state, like Medicare and like different services, are free, but you have to pay for them. And then if we go with, and I mean, this ties into ending poverty, but if you go into like, there's a chance that Social Security may not exist and your 401k, if you have a job that has a 401k, and if that gets depleted and you get sick and you're older and you get whatever Social Security and you're living on borrowed time and you have to pay for your health care. So you have so many people who, work hard, they build a good life for themselves and their family, and then life happens and you don't even have to be older for life to happen. And now you have a bunch of bills and you're impoverished. So, like, health and wealth tied closely together, because all it takes is one health crisis and you're completely wiped out. And Social Security makes you jump through hoops to get anything. And like I said, the Medicare, they are not free. You have to pay for them. Like, so you have to pay for these things. So like I said, one health crisis. So it's like, how do we make sure that people have good health care? How do we make sure that people have access to that? Because if you drive in, like, I don't know if it's just our neighborhood, I don't know if it's just Randallstown and always, but you see doctors and dentists everywhere. But how do you make people want to go and do that preventive health care? You know, get that dental work, get all that checkups, so that when they are older, they can maintain their health. Because like I said, there's one health crisis, and you done worked your entire life, and everything you own is gone. The government put a lien on your house. Your kids can't get your insurance because there's a lien, and you have to pay all the creditors and everybody before before anything. You know, hope there's enough for a funeral. If that.
And I do want to do a follow up. So you hit the nail on a hammer with, a health crisis can wipe out people's savings, 401k. They could lose the insurance. Right now, unfortunately, because of what's happening in the world, individuals can't really afford, healthcare the way that they did at one point, and they don't really have a nest egg or savings for a health crisis. So it really does bring me into asking a follow up question. SDG 17 is partnership for the goals, and that is where organizations work together for the betterment of the community using systems, versus silo an approach. If there could be a system developed where government agencies, nonprofits, for-profit organizations, I'll even throw in, workforce or whatever, what type of system could be created or implemented for emergencies or people that are in need? For example, with the example you use with, with health.
I definitely think that we should. I feel like if you pay, like, your money, if you work, you pay into the 401k, and you pay into your health care and your insurance, and you have that fund. I feel like people should be able to have access to that almost immediately without having to jump through hoops. I know one thing that happened recently is, like, a lot of people, because I'm going to use Randall, because Randallstown, grew up in Randallstown. I'm a Randallstown girl, so it's a historic Black community. You had people who moved here, 20, 30, 40 years ago. They're getting older. Their kids are getting older, so you have a lot of people who may be experiencing those things. And the Black community tends to be a very religious community, and there are a lot of churches around here. And one thing we find, I mean, there are churches that will help people. Like, we depended on the churches in different community organizations. Maybe we can, like, come together, because I mean, I feel like if we look at organizations, like, I think most of the Divine Honest here, we have NAACP, we have so many health organizations. Maybe we could come together, not maybe not like a resource fair, but like pull something together to show people the resources that are there. But I would say the main thing people need is money, because we say money is the root of all evil. Like, these things cost money. Like, so even if you could go and do all the paperwork required to get your emergency help, people need money, and they need access to resources, and they need support. And then when somebody unexpectedly becomes a caregiver, they might have to take off from work and stop working. Like, we need a way to give people, like, emergency fund, like whatever that payment is, because people are gonna need money. Like I said, I look at the community like Randallstown, like, people buy their homes, they settled here, they raise their family here, they want to continue living in their home. So, like, how can we help the people in our community? And money, like I said, do we have to have a fundraiser, come together, put together a community event? Do we have to do like a gala like we do with the scholarships or something, but that's definitely one thing we need to. And then, they don't like to use the word recession. Nobody's used the word recession, but as someone who has lived through a previous recession, all the indicators are there. And people, are struggling with certain things. So, like, we need to come together to help people with like resources and connections. And like I said, if they need a one-time payment, no matter how small it is, people need money. Because this is a nice community, but I don't think any of us are so rich. It's a
Yes,
nice community, though.
yes, it is. And actually, what you're referring to, and that's where Agenda 2030 comes in, it's our communities are lacking economic mobility, right? So, for whatever, SDG 1, no poverty, SDG 3, good health and well being, SDG 17, partnerships for the goals, our communities are suffering because there is a lack of economic mobility, right? And you mentioned what most people would identify is like a one hit wonder, like Millie Vanilli, right? They get that one check or they get that one gala, like you said, or one scholarship, and that's it. Like it. But because there is no continuation, no follow up, no return on investment, no system, that's why our communities are suffering. So, in when we're thinking about how to move people from poverty to prosperity, I think culturally it's embedded in us that we are thinking that one off
Mm-hmm.
versus longevity, right? Short term versus long term. So, and health is just an example, right? And it's happening to our aging and elderly all the time, right? And
Right.
they're trying to figure out where the next groceries, where their food coming from, let alone their health care. So yeah, thank you for sharing that because that is one of those issues that, even though Agenda 2030 is globally, here on a local level, we're facing it each and every day. And I don't think people are thinking about the ramifications of the long term impact. They're thinking of an immediate solution. And that's what kind of throws us off a little bit. So thank you so very much for sharing, those examples because that was amazing. My next question,
Yeah.
from your perspective,
Mm-hmm.
what is one of the biggest barriers preventing individuals and communities from moving from poverty to prosperity? So,
Um,
based off your
yeah.
background, your
Mhm.
your experience, what do you think?
I would say particularly, I call myself and my family like children of the civil rights movement. So like being in certain organizations, you'll find that people have been here for like generations. So like I want to say my family was like poor before the civil rights movement, what they want, but like the civil rights movement and my family's participation in that definitely helped us move up in the world. Like so, my mom, she attended college and she was able to get a career, become a professional. My dad became like a business owner. So, but like we didn't necessarily have like generational wealth before that. And I would say, even if it wasn't like a formal education, like if you look at the people who had that economic prosperity before the civil rights movement, because there's a big difference who had it before and after they had access to education in a world that a lot of other Black people didn't have access to. So like figuring out how to get people access, and education doesn't necessarily have to mean higher education, because there was a time you could go to vocational school, graduate, and have a career. And they are doing that with people being able to go to community college for a couple of years and do that. But in order to have money, because none of us are rich, you have to have access to education skills. So like even if it isn't a 4 year degree, you have to have a skill set that you can monetize in order to make the money. So whatever that is, like if you do hair, if you're a nurse, if you're a truck driver, if you do finances, whatever you do, you have to have access to that. And a lot of times, like people feel like they could teach themselves, but you need an education. And not only that, it's the networks that you put in when you go to certain institutions that can help you get ahead. Because like, I'm trying to say this carefully, because sometimes there is a certain mindset that comes with poverty. Because people who are impoverished, they're not bad. Poverty is not a moral failure. But if you see people who are just surviving and just trying to make it in the world, and they're just getting by, but when you get to another world and you see people who are a little bit more comfortable, people who are professional, people who can pour into you and mentor you, and you get into a different world, that's where a lot of these organizations come in at, because you do need that community, especially if you're coming from a place that is poverty, because sometimes people can get the education, but then they have a poverty mindset. So I think the big thing is education, and work hard. But education comes into play because you kind of have to know what you're doing. You have to be willing to learn. And then we're moving the barriers to education, because we started going to college, and now student loans exist, and people are paying 2 to 3 times what they took out in student loans, and they're paying student loans for the rest of their life. And then you have this anti-intellectual movement where people are like, well, you don't need to go to college, and you could do this and you could do that, and you could be an entrepreneur. And I personally feel like it's aimed to a lot of our Black kids, because I don't hear people in other communities telling their kids not to go to college. Now, they may tell them to major smart and pick wisely, but I feel like, me personally, this is my opinion, in the Black community, we tell a lot of our kids don't go to college for whatever reason. And in order to even the playing field, you're going to need some sort of education. You're going to have to know what you're doing. Like, if you're an entrepreneur, that's great, but you make a lot of money and you don't know how to pay your taxes. Now the IRS and the comptroller is coming and take all your money. Or someone who's a little bit smarter than you, because you just have the business idea, comes and robs you blind. So you have to have that education. So I think education is the biggest barrier to getting out of poverty. And like I said, post-civil rights movement, you notice when we got access to education, a Black middle class was created in the 70s and 80s. We saw a level of prosperity that we hadn't really seen for the total Black community. Not just some, but all. We were very prosperous in the 70s and 80s when we had access to that education. And we need to get back there, because stop telling our babies not to go to college. They need stop telling them so, because why y'all always telling Black kids not to go to college? I don't like that.
All right, you about to go off. Let me go to the next
No,
one.
I'm never to go off, but
No,
I
I'm
really hate
joking. I'm joking with
I
you.
hate when they do that. Don't tell the Black kids don't go to college. No, we need to be in college, and not just HBCUs. We need to get in the room. And we complain when we're not in the room because you're not sending your kids in the room. Like, you're not putting your kids in the room, so how can you complain when there are no Black faces because you're not sending your kids there? But I'm done.
Okay, and that leads to a great transition. So,
Mhm.
what innovative or practical solutions do you believe can create long term sustainable change in communities facing economic and social challenges? So let me repeat it again, but
Mhm.
it really ties into what you were just talking about. So, what innovative or practical solutions do you believe can create long term sustainable change in communities facing economic and social challenges?
I think main thing besides education, I think the government needs to start caring about certain communities, because I always list Randallstown, even though Randallstown is not an impoverished community, but name another Black middle class community where you have to go up to another community to go do your shopping. Like, you live in Randallstown, you're professional, and you have to go up to Aldersburg to do your shopping. Like, it's gotten better. We have things now, but you have to go to another community to do your shopping. You see a lot of that in Prince George's County. Like, people complain, like areas like Bowie, Upper Marlboro, nice middle class communities. You have $500,000, $1 million homes, and people have to go other places to do their shopping. So I think we definitely need economic investment in our communities, because we're living in this community, but there's nothing there. Like, Randallstown just started getting things, and I've lived in Randallstown the majority of my life. Like you had to go to Towson, you had to go to Columbia, you had to go to Eldersburg. So make it so that we can have businesses in our community. And I know sometimes we can have I won't say contentious relationship with Black owned businesses because that's something else, but making sure that when we get a business in our community, that we support it. Because we have to show, because, we have the economic and the financial spending power. We've been in this community, it's a strong community, but to show businesses that not only can they come here, we will support, we will spend our money, but then we'll also, your businesses will be safe because I'm saying this as nicely as possible, which means your kids can't be acting the fool and going up to people's businesses and fighting and stealing and stuff like that. So so that's the main thing, economic. Having leaders that can, and the leaders that do, but holding them accountable, but making sure that we are visible because this is our community. Like this is a strong historical, Black middle class community, beautiful homes, professional people, people who worked hard to get here. And, we want to be able to shop in our community. I don't always want to go up to Eldersburg to shop. I don't want to always have to go, to Howard County to play on the playgrounds. And they have added nice new playgrounds. So I will say that. But that was a complaint because I'm in Howard County and I'm like, these are nice. And I'm looking at our playground, and I'm like, this is a biohazard. So making sure that we have things, because we don't get a discount on our taxes. This is not the hood. So making sure that people actually care about our community. And I'm gonna say this, sometimes I think we're so happy to get Black people and Black faces in office, and we don't want to rock the boat, and we don't want to say anything offensive, and we want to stand behind our own, which we should, but those people are there for a reason and they should be held accountable. And if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, I don't think it should be a hush whispered conversation because you know you don't get a pass because you're Black. We are Black. Like you're here to do a job. Like, we live in this community. We are Black. so so like I said, yeah, because there's no reason why we should be a nice middle class neighborhood and certain Black neighborhoods are still struggling for things, and it's not. And the tax dollars are there. Like the schools should be good because if they're supported by the schools, we shouldn't be looking at the computers in Renaissance High School and like what is this? But you go to Delaney Valley and they have nice things. This is not segregation. We need to have nice things too. And the people that we send to the county, the state, and the federal, they need to fight to bring those things back.
Many great points. Yeah. So, many social challenges are rooted in systems and structures. What changes do you believe are needed at the organizational, community, or policy level to create greater opportunity? And I think you're about to go into that a little more. So
I think people need to engage with the systems. I think what's happened to, and I always go back to like the civil rights movement because that's like a big catalyst for change in our community. I think when we got to the point where, because I was born in the '80s, so my generation, my parents' generation, they were born after like all that died down. So they were born in like the '60s, so they didn't have to deal with like the segregation. So when I grew up, we were 2 generations removed from that. And then my kids are like 3 generations removed from that. And then sometimes I think we get comfortable, and then sometimes we can get angry and frustrated, and we can get disengaged. And I think a lot of people disengage with the everyday political process because they don't realize how many things are political. And I know we don't like to talk about politics, but those long lines we had at BWI, that's because our president made Iran angry, and Iran said, "Oh, you want this oil? You can't have this oil." So now the planes don't have fuel, and you're standing in the line at BWI for 3 hours. Like the food that you eat is political. The grocery stores that you have in your area is political. Your schools are political. The houses that are built in your neighborhood are political. If you look at different things like the community festivals, like in Baltimore City, there's the AFLAM and there is Artscape. A lot of that is funded by the Baltimore City's Mayor Office of Entertainment. So that has to be voted on, the amount of money that is spent and delegated for that festival. So that is political too. So even your entertainment is political. And I think so many people just disengage with the process because they may feel, let down or like, well, I don't care to vote. Like nothing has changed, but you have to stay engaged. And then a lot of times people only show up when they're angry, which I understand. But when you're showing up when you're angry, you done missed 10 steps.
Right.
Because a lot of things that you're angry about has been in the works for like 20 years. Like you vote on things maybe 2 or 3 election cycles before it starts to get built. And yes, the voices of the community coming together, showing up loud and proud can cause change. But I mean, if that's just one issue out of like 50 that sweeps under the rug, then things happen and then it's already in motion. So I think the main thing, to round it up, is people have to stay engaged. So it's not about politics or having an office. It's just when you look at it, you realize are how many things are political, how many things your neighborhood may not have because you're a representative that made somebody else mad, and now they don't want to bring that to your neighborhood. Like who's trying to bring stores to our neighborhood? The politicians, council people, the state representatives. Who's trying to fill that empty space in Newtown? The politicians. That's what they're talking about. So everything is political. So you have to stay engaged with that.
And now the community leader is showing up.
Yes. Because it's just because I work for the state, and not only because I work for the state, just because when you work in like public engagement, you just talk to random people, and you just really do realize how many things are political. And it's not like people think of politics like a bad thing. Like a lot of like elected officials are in the room when these decisions are being made. Like who are these artists talking to? They're talking to the mayor's office of Baltimore. They're talking to the county off. Like they're talking to these government offices to bring entertainment to you. And I don't even think people realize that a lot of it is political.
Yeah. So, how important are partnerships and collaboration in advancing community impact? And what have you learned about working across sectors?
So when we go back to the official, like what I'll do for like what part of it is community engagement and community partnerships, and you really do need you do need community partners. You because it's impossible. But not only that, I like I can't even give a long answer. Like it's needed. You need different organizations in the community to do certain things, and you also need the funding to do these things because if you're trying to bring people to, let's say, the community centers so they could come vote, how are you going to get the transportation? Who has a transportation company? Who's paying for the gas? Who is doing things like that? And that's like we get a lot of calls. People like constituents are having certain issues, and it may not necessarily be our agency, but if you know somebody from another agency, you could just send it to them directly, so they don't get like a info@mailin.gov. They can talk to somebody directly. So I do think partnerships are extremely important, and then having the funding to fund these partnerships is important. Yeah, I mean, like, cause I go to events. It's I don't want to say it's nothing, but just introducing yourself and like sitting at a booth or just sitting and casually talking to somebody about a problem that somebody in your community or family member is having, and then it gets done. Because sometimes you just sending emails and nobody's responding. Like in our office building, we had a mouse and nobody's responding. So I talked to the secretary of DGS, and the next day we had an exterminator. So sometimes you just have to do stuff like that. But yeah, I mean partnerships, like because I always go back to the civil rights movement. Like it was more than just the NAACP. It was just more than SNCC. It was more than CORE. It was all these organizations, more than the Urban League. It was all these organizations that came together to do certain things because everybody has different goals, everybody has different gifts and different levels of expertise. And then when everybody came together, it was successful.
Yeah, cross sector collaborations and partnerships is what moved the needle. And that's when funding comes in, right? It's not just about, I keep saying one hit wonder, Millie Vanilli, although they were great. But yeah, let me pull back because it's not my interview. I'm doing an interview.
It's
Okay.
like,
So, what advice would you give to young leaders, emerging professionals, or aspiring makers who want to make a difference in their community? So, again, what advice would you give young leaders, emerging professionals, or aspiring change makers who want to make a difference in their
I would say the main thing is, I mean, a lot of people they move away from home to go to like college and work and things like that. So, that becomes your community. So, get engaged with that, see what the organizations are, see who the leaders are, see what the issues are, and then also stay abreast of the issues that are happening at home. If you still have parents that live in the community, like what is happening, paying attention to that, getting involved. I know young people to the babies. I'm not gonna old men yelling at the sky you, but you got to get out the house. You got to get out the house. Yes, social media is a good tool to connect and learn about certain things, and see certain things that are coming out. But you got to get out the house. You got to go talk to people. You got to say hi to people. You got to strike up a conversation with people. Just go out into the community. You don't have to be like, oh, hey, like, but you don't have to be like the friendliest person in the world. But go to like different community events. Just get out there. You know, get involved. And the main thing is to do the work because there's always work to be done. So I would say start doing the work now. Whatever you're interested in, look up, show up, whatever issues you have, and don't be afraid to talk to people because the politicians are here for you. So I'm not afraid to send an email. I mean, it's taken a while to get to that point. So I would never say like, oh, you know, I would never just be like, oh, if you can't do it, that's fine. It's definitely a muscle, but yeah, you have to stay engaged. You have to stay connected. You have to know what the issues are and get out the house, get off the computer, because social media is good for building a platform. But you have to eventually, you're gonna have to get into the community. You're gonna have to meet people. You'll have to introduce yourself, and people are gonna have to know who you are because a lot of people online may not be in your community. You have to be connected to the people that are in your community.
magnificent. Okay,
Thank you.
how do you define success when it comes to creating meaningful impact? And what metrics or indicators do you believe matter most?
I definitely believe visible change. So, doing the work. So you can talk about it all you want, but you have to get out there. You have to do the work. And you don't necessarily have to hound people, but I think metrics to success is seeing the work, seeing things get done. Cause I mean I had an issue with the playgrounds around here, but now there's a nice new playground at Northwest Regional Park. It took a couple years, but it's there. So I would say that's the main thing. And like I said, if you do the work, then eventually the success will come, but you have to do the work. You can't just talk, you can't just complain. You have to get involved and engage.
All right. And if you could fast forward to 2030, which is not
Okay.
too far away,
No, it's not.
no, it's not. What positive changes would you hope to see in our communities, organization, or society as a whole?
I definitely want the children that are coming up now I want the anti-intellectual mindset to shift and change. I want people, like I said, you don't necessarily have to go to college. You don't necessarily have to go to a 4-year university, but emphasizing education and getting a career. And I feel like 9 to 5s have, for some reason, been demonized. Nobody wants to go to work. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur and vacation on a yacht. in the middle of the ocean, which is great if that is your dream. But I think I think we definitely need to bring back education, careers, even if entrepreneurship is your career. Like I said, continuing to have a strong community. Hopefully, whatever recession that we are in will kind of pass. And then I want to say just bringing up new leaders, because not that anybody particularly needs to move from office, but like allowing space for new young people with ideas, and then allowing, I always say accessible education, because nobody should be drowning in student loans. Because when I went to school, like I was first year, kind of like my parents hadn't gone to college. Like they had, trades and they were working, but they hadn't gone to college. We didn't know how to do that. So I would say that's the main thing. Increased mentorship. I would definitely love to see like Lansdowne to be more of a thriving community, more businesses, more diversity of businesses. Because it's a, like I said, it's a great community. I would love for the kids in Owens Mills to stop acting up. Sorry. I would love the kids, because millennials, those are our babies, so we need the kids in Owens Mills to stop acting up. But I just wanted to increase and be prosperous. More education. I want this to be a community that people want to live in. That when our kids grow up, they want to come back and they want to stay here and they want to grow. And like I said, I keep going back to education, because I don't like how I feel like all kids are like discouraged from seeking education.
Oh, sorry, I'm still on mute.
Oh, that's
So,
fine.
what is one action?
Mm.
What is one action our listeners can take today to become more effective leaders and contribute to sustainable community transformation?
I would say first thing is find out who your leaders are. Do a search, find out what district you live in, and find out who represents you. If you have an issue, whatever it is, because complaining to your friends and family is cool, but you need to actually talk to the people who could do something about it. So sending an email to your council person, the county executive, your delegate, your senator, whoever can help with that issue, I would say that's the main thing. And then if there's something that interests you in the community, like an organization or something that you're really interested in, I would do research on that, because I mean we all have one of these. You use it for doing something other than scrolling TikTok. So what are you interested in? What issues do you have? And connect with the people that can actually I mean, because that's one thing I had to do. Use it to actually connect with the people who can make that change.
I'm laughing because I always say the smartphone is only as smart as its owner or the
Yes,
user.
because like I said, you have access to so many things. So I mean, if you want to complain, that's fine. But like, you should complain to the people that can actually do something about it. Because you would actually be shocked. Because sometimes it's not that people don't know, but if that's it. But if I'm driving past something on Painters Mill every single day, but the person who represents this district doesn't necessarily drive past that, they may not know. So you may be complaining and be like, oh, well, they don't do this and this. Maybe they do know, but maybe they need some people to push it along. So that's what I would say. I would say connect with the people who are the leaders in your community and figure out what needs to be done. And I mean, there is no substitute for hard work. Sometimes you're just going to have to do it.
Listen, amen to that. And on a last note, here on my AM talk show, we focus on disrupting poverty
Mm-hmm.
through leadership that delivers results. What is one leadership principle you believe every person should embrace if they want to create lasting impact in their community?
I would I could always just go back to doing the work. So whatever you see, whatever you don't like, because it's very easy to, complain to your family and friends, oh, I'm not going to vote, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. Sometimes you have to do the work, and sometimes the work is making a phone call, sometimes the work is sending an email, sometimes the work is joining your community organizations, getting out and seeing what's there. So there is no substitute for doing the work and just elbow grease and seeing what is there. Like, you don't have to have an official elected position, you don't have to even be seen in the forefront, but you can connect with the people who, who are supposed to represent you in the state, the county, the federal, municipal, if you live in a municipality.
And you've been amazing.
Thank you. Thank
There
you.
is a wealth of that we didn't even get to today. And I had to think about your bio, and I was like, she missed that. So I really want you in closing
Mhm.
to tell people, remind people who you are once again, how they can get a hold of you, because you drop nuggets,
Mhm.
and nugget dropping is always good, always good. So what who are you? Like, go ahead and close it. Go ahead and close this out.
Okay,
But don't
so
don't disconnect though. But go ahead.
okay, so my name is Donna Broadway-Callaman. I would just say I don't want to say like I'm a random person that just grew up in this community, and I would say I never, because you want to be, but I just grew up in this community. So I grew up in the Baltimore area. I've done work for the state of Maryland and all over the state of Maryland. And what I've been doing recently is just getting more connected to my community, not just politically, but just getting involved in certain things, connecting with certain people. So, yeah, I call myself a professional busybody. So that's a little bit of what I do. And like I said, I do have, well, I'm Donna Sierra on all platforms. I have a Substack if people want to read more essays about that. It's just Donna Broadway on Substack. And I guess if you're interested in emailing me, you can email me at Donna T Broadway, Donna T like Tom, Broadway at New York at gmail.com. Man, I would love to talk with anybody. I love talking about this type of stuff. Because I mean, I just think I think it's so interesting. And I think some of these recipes have been lost. And I feel like we do too much. This is what's wrong with the Black community. And I don't think we need that. I just think we need more engagement, and we need to encourage people more to positive things. Not that everything is related is negative, but more to positive things like careers and education and like family and things like that. So, like I said, I love talking about history and civil rights movement and things that are happening now.
Yes and no. I appreciate you getting up so early to be here for this very informative advocacy conversation, because what people don't realize is that advocacy happens in two ways. You're
Mhm.
writing it or you're speaking it, right?
Yes.
And sometimes people don't want to read. A lot of
Hmm.
times people don't want to read, but they will listen, right? And then you'll have some people that don't want to listen, they will read. But when we're constantly giving them reminders and they're hearing it and it's on autopilot and the hamster wheel and they're hearing it from different angles and different people, you know, at some point it's going to sink in. And we're living
Yeah.
in a culture right now that we can no longer sit by and wait. We have to be on the forefront. So I appreciate you answering the call to
Yeah.
continue the conversation beyond initially how we met, because I continue to be impressed with your background
Oh,
and
thank
all
you.
that you do as a mom of four, and a mom yourself. And people don't realize that it could never be a price tag on the amount of work that we do just within our households or outside of our households. So, regardless of what continues to happen in this election cycle, I'm hoping that we can stay connected and stay immersed and engaged, because it's not leading up to an election. It's what
Right.
happens on the off cycle of elections where we need to keep people engaged and informed and, passionate, even if it's not in their backyard. And by the way, Randallstown is Baltimore, so never apologize for that.
Well,
It is
look, I'm not
all one
apologizing.
high.
I just get tired of arguing with people online who tell me that I am not from Baltimore. So, cause, cause, look, if I'm not from Baltimore and we love the club Queen, she's not from Baltimore either, and we're not gonna go there. Don't attack me, people. I'm just saying, because we both from Manasal, so don't attack me. But I don't need
Listen,
nobody to attack me.
listen. Tell them you're not from Baltimore. You're from Baltimore.
Look,
Right.
I am from, but this is my community. I work in Baltimore. I don't, I mean, I live in always, but I spend a lot of time in Randallstown. This is my community. And, we want it to be better. We want it to continue to grow. This is a great community that more people should know about. Like, you have a Black historic middle class community, and this is what people want to live in. And
Yeah.
and it's like, is it good that it's a secret? But it's a great community.
And actually, it's not a secret, not at all. It's not a secret. But let me wrap this up. So thank you so much again for being a part. I'm excited um, to hear from you and to have reinforced things I've been talking about over months of podcasts. And Agenda 2030 is something I don't think a lot of people are familiar with, but it's what we're fighting for even more. But taking it from a global level down to a local level, it just put it a lot more into perspective. So appreciate you today. We're
Thank
gonna
you for
wrap
having
this up
me.
right now.
Yes.
And thanks for those that are paying attention. So hang on.